this is my review of this mini HDMI2AV adapter that I picked up off of Amazon for, well, it was cheap. It was about, I think I paid about $12 for it, something like that. It was not that expensive. And basically what it does is it'll take an HDMI signal and it just gives you standard audio video out from it. Now, I've used these units before. What I use them for is for devices that only have HDMI out that I say want to hook up to a regular video monitor, such as security cameras and stuff. A lot of the newer DVRs only have an HDMI out. And if you want to feed them to a regular TV, you need to have one of these adapters. And the ones I've bought before, they've all worked. But this one here, I opened this thing up and right out of the box, it doesn't work. I'll show you what it's doing. Now, how these things work is you plug in your AV cable, your video out, plugs into the video output, and you plug your HDMI into the input. So as I plug this thing in, we'll see on my monitor here, I've just got it plugged into a PC, that the unit is showing no signal. It's giving me color bars, but it's showing no signal. And it's in PAL. This is the PAL signal that's coming up here. If I unplug it, plug it back in, the first time I plugged it in here, it said PAL on the screen. There we go. It's in PAL. Even though, as we notice, that the switch is clearly set to NTSC. If I switch the switch to PAL, it'll sit there and flip back and forth between NTSC and PAL. That's what it's supposed to look like. This is just an output from my media center PC, but it just constantly flips back and forth like the switch here is no good. So let's crack this thing open. I already contacted the vendor and they basically gave me the whole song and dance that they test them all before they leave, but as you can clearly see, it says it's in the PAL mode now, but what we're getting out of it is an NTSC picture. And if I switch this to NTSC, I get a PAL picture. So it clearly isn't any good. Even in there, it's going to flip back and forth. It's flipping back and forth on its own. No one's touching this thing, and it's just flipping back and forth. As you can see, it flips back and forth on its own. So I'm just going to pop this thing apart and just take a look at the build quality of this thing and see why it's switching. So to open this up, we're just going to take a screwdriver and pop it open here at the seam. And here's what we're looking at. This looks to be very, very low quality. For 12 bucks, so what do you expect? Here's our switch. And let's just get a look at the soldering on that switch. That leaves something to be desired. Like, the switch isn't even connected to the board. I think this is where a problem is, right here. Very, very, very shoddy workmanship on this thing. I mean, it just... just awful. It almost looks like a little bridge right there. If you look about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7, 8 pins up, looks like there's a little solder bridge on the HDMI. I'm just looking at this on the screen to my camera, but right down here it looks like there might be a little bridge of solder too. Well, it certainly doesn't look good there. If you look at the 3, 4, 5, 6, between 6 and 7 over from the left, it looks like it's not a bridge, but it's certainly not very good. Certainly not very good soldering. I've now got this up on my big monitor so I can actually inspect this, but I mean, look at the USB power plug. It's all, you know, it looks like it's all rusty. And look at the look at that switch. This is just, You know, it's... I've already contacted the supplier, and well, they've asked me to send it back to them, but you know, to ship this stupid thing back to China at my expense, it's going to cost me more to send this thing back than the thing's worth. But just the workmanship on this thing is just disgusting. Just horrible, the soldering on this thing. Again, I apologize for the shaky camera work here, as I'm just sitting in my office. I haven't bothered to go get my my tripod here. I just wanted to take a quick look at this thing. I think what I will try doing, though, before condemning this thing permanently, is I'm going to maybe resolder that switch, and maybe try and clear out that little short that I can see. You can see it there, right between those two pins. It definitely looks like there's a little whisker on that. You can see it shiny there. There's a little whisker right in here, causing a short on the HDMI cable, or HDMI connector. Sure looks like a short. Terrible quality. So to try and do this surgery, I'm just going to mount the camera on a little portable tripod here. Just going to see if I can clear out this. I'm looking at this on my monitor. Just see if we can try and clear this little short out here. So now I've got a nice bright light on here so I can sort of see what I'm doing. This is extremely small, and I'm actually looking at it on the monitor. You can see the little flecks of metal. Just piss poor soldering on this thing. What a joke. Let's get a load of that switch on the bottom again here. Soldering for this switch. Get a better look at that. Ugh. Like it's no wonder it doesn't work. It's not even soldered down to the board. It looks like it's just the center pin here is either open or grounded, and that's what turns it into NTSC or PAL. So for that matter, I can just bridge that over and put it into NTSC mode, because I have no need for PAL. So I'm just going to go and resolder that in the other room in my workshop. I can't shoot this in my workshop right now because it's like 12:30 at night and my car is in the garage. So I'm just kind of trying to get this thing going here in my workshop in my office. So I'm just going to go reflow this switch, and we'll see whether that improves things a bit on this thing. Okay, since I only need NTSC, I don't need to ever worry about PAL. I've just hardwired the switch, because basically all it does, it just grounds out the middle pin, and that's what switches it from NTSC to PAL, or PAL to NTSC. So I've just grounded out that switch, so it'll always be in NTSC mode. We'll hook this thing up now and see if we get a picture. Okay, we're ready to plug it back in here. Just plug in our connector here, and we have a picture. That solved that problem. That was a pretty simple one to solve. So keep that in mind. If you buy one of these things off of Amazon, you may have to do a little bit of work to make the thing work. But what do you expect? It was $12, and that included shipping. Now, just to show that these things are not all created equal, this is one that looks identical. You can see my security cameras on it here. I'll unplug the one that I'm currently using, and this is the new one under test. And when I plug it into HDMI, I get nothing off of my recorder, my DVR. This is the one that does work. I get nothing, or I get a picture like that. If I supply external power with USB, let's see if it kicks in. So I'll plug a USB cable in, and I'll just plug it into my computer here and see whether it will work. I guess I have to turn on my computer to get power out the HDMI, out the USB plugs. So now I'm giving it external power, and it works. So even though it does take power over HDMI, this thing draws more power than this one, which looks identical, except for this one's labeled correctly, the PAL on the left and NTSC on the right. The other one's labeled the other way around. It's labeled NTSC on the left and PAL on the right. So even though the units look the same other than the different brand, I mean everything else looks the same, they're different units internally. This one here, I can power it right up off from my DVR, my security system. It powers this up no problem, but on this one here it doesn't. I have to power it with external power. If I remove the external power, the picture cuts out. But if I go back to the other one and just plug it in without any external power, it works. That's being powered over HDMI. But I plug this into a PC, which I did before when I just tested it, and it gets power off the HDMI port. So this thing draws a little bit more power than the one that's providing this picture right now for my security cameras, because right now there's no external power. This one requires external power to work. So internally they're a little different. I'm going to pop the other one apart and just take a look at the board in it and see how much different they are. So here are these two units. Let's just crack open this other one and just see what it looks like inside. Never had this one open because it's never given me any trouble. And this one wasn't that expensive either. I bought this one a couple of years ago, and it was I think I paid $20 for this one, but as you can see internally it's a completely different unit. Look at the build quality difference. The units both look the same. I'll crack this other one open again so you can see the difference inside. So both these units look the same on the outside, but look at the interior of them. They are completely different. Here's the Chinese one that just arrived in the mail yesterday, or was it today? This was earlier today. Yesterday, technically, because it's after midnight. So this is the one that arrived in the mail yesterday, and it works fine from my PC now that I've fixed the switch. But from my DVR, it doesn't get enough power through the HDMI plug, and this is the one that I previously had, and you can see, look at the difference in the build quality. I mean, it's just superior. First of all, it doesn't look all rusty inside, but it's got a nice little heat sink here, and cat's coming to visit me. Nice little heat sink here on the decoder IC, or the encoder or decoder, whatever it is. Can't tell because it's got a heat sink on it, but totally different chipset in here. Get you a close-up of that so you can see it. Let's take a look at the bottom side of the board on this one. This one's actually got some components on the bottom side of the board. This cheap one has nothing. Okay? Big difference in the quality of these units here. And this one here, soldering is actually looks good. This one here, soldering, not so much. It's got a website on there, http://shop1426005730212.1688.com. This one's a knockoff. This is the original one. And this is a knockoff, but look at the difference again on the quality of the boards. This is the one that was good, and I've never had a day's problem out of this thing. And it has a very good picture. Down converted to standard definition, of course. And here's the new one that I just got. And as you can see, totally different animals, different chipset, much better build quality on this one here. So my advice, buy that one, the REI brand. It's great. XDM600, never had any problem with it. Stay clear of that one, because that one's just a piece of shit. Thanks for watching.